evening, everyone, and thanks for logging on. Welcome to the 5th in our series of Sheep Vet Society and Webinar Vet Sheep webinars. Tonight's speakers are Lesley Stubbings and Tim Bebbington. Lesley's going to cover lamb performance factors, which is what allows a lamb to grow to its potential, and then Tim will present some data showing the value of monitoring abattoir returns. So what makes a good lamb a profitable lamb? As always, if you have any questions or queries during the presentation, if you can type your question into the question box, and we'll try and work them in as we go along. We'll have a small break in the middle as we change over from Lesley's presentation to Tim's. So again, that's a good opportunity for any questions if you have them. And then there'll be hopefully 5 minutes for questions at the end as well. But just type them in as we go along, and we'll see if we can get them answered as we do. Okay, so now over to Lesley, and we'll start with lamb performance factors.
Hello. This is my next webinar, which is being post-recorded. Today we're going to talk about lamb performance factors, and really just to give a broad overview of some of the factors that are involved, but also, I think perhaps more importantly, some of the targets we're setting and some of the actual performances that we're achieving out in the field. So if we think about the sort of facts surrounding this and lamb growth, clearly it's an extremely important factor in any profitable sheep production. Then it's probably the most common area of complaint for sheep farmers as we're travelling around talking to clients. They're complaining about how their lambs are failing to grow at optimal rates. Of course, one of the problems being that it's very difficult to then get out of them what that optimal rate should be. Because really many sheep farmers know the lambs aren't growing as well as they should be, because they know basically, if nothing more, how many lambs are left at the end of the summer as store lambs, but they're really not sure why, because it is a multifactorial situation. That said, usually what they want to try and do is to look for a fairly simple explanation, and the one example that I've given here, of course, is, well, they're short of some trace element or whatever, therefore that I'll put that right, I'll spend some money on it, and the problem will be solved. And of course it really isn't that simple in reality. So I just want to explore some of those factors in this presentation. If we think about growth rate, then the thing that I think most people would jump to first will be that normally we see lamb prices decreasing as the season progresses, as these EBLEX figures actually show. We tend not to get the lovely seasonal hype in prices in the spring that we used to get, and we saw in 2011, but nevertheless there is a downward trend as we reach the end of the summer into the autumn, and then perhaps it comes back up, but as we all know, in 2012, early 13, it stayed on the bottom right the way through until the end of March. So from the farmer's perspective, that is driver number one usually, that he wants good growth rate for his lambs because he wants to get them away before the price drops. But of course there are other factors involved, and probably from a profitability point of view, much more important ones. So just to really recap on the two most important ones as I see it, the first one is that if we look at time along the bottom, i.e. age of lamb, and the percent of a mature size up the left-hand side of this graph, then normally with an uninterrupted growth curve we would expect our lambs to be slaughtered at 50% of their mature body weight, and that would give us a carcass fat content of the magic 3L. Ewe lambs tend to be 5% less than that. Entire males would be 5 or slightly more than 5% higher than that, but the median figure is 50%. But of course, if on the way towards that 50% the lamb goes through a period of very slow growth, a store period, with or without some compensatory growth, which we'll come to later, then the tendency is for the carcass quality to be reduced, for the lamb to grow frame, and for it actually to be much bigger at that level of fat of 3L. And the carcass quality itself in terms of shape and conformations also affected. So there are issues there with lambs not attaining a reasonably smooth and rapid growth curve. The other point is